My whole life, I was told money, sex, and politics are not to be discussed, those taboo topics. So this month, I'm discussing the taboo topic of money, woman, wealth, and abundance. If you grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, these topics were not things that we as girl children were talked about, and then suddenly through a life event, through divorce or death of a partner, we're forced with all of the discussions around money that we are not prepared for. So this month, I'm doing a couple of discussions around all the different aspects of money and abundance. And today I have Kristi Worful with me in the studio. And I'm so happy to have you in Austin today. And we can have this discussion about abundance in person, which is so much better. And so my beautiful friend Kristi is, like I just said, visiting Austin. And she is the founder of the School of Transformational Arts and Sciences. I got that right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask Kristi to just tell us about herself and what she gets excited about every day when she gets up.
That's a great question. I love living. I think the main title that I've given myself my whole life is I'm a life enthusiast. And so I love exploring our inner landscape and our outer world as well. Like I'm an inward and outward adventurer. And I have explored thousands of hours of my own inner landscape, and I guide others into exploring their inner landscape. And it is my deepest belief that our inner landscape is a mirror for our external world. So if there's things happening externally in our world, in our life, in our relationships, there's somewhere in there that it's a mirror for. So if there's something out of harmony in relationships, there's somewhere in ourselves that's out of harmony. And so when we can go inward, we can actually map back to that. And when we shift it for ourselves, the entire world shifts around us.
People say that, and for some people, it's really hard to bring it back to the inner world when there's so much stuff going on in the external world, and it's so easy to blame the governor, the president, the ex-husband, and all of these things, and not bringing abundance back into the inner game. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think I love that because that's actually a clear sign is when we're so focused externally on what isn't working. To me, that's like the first red flag. Oh no, I have inner work to do. I'm like really pointing the finger, or I'm really doubling down that this external thing is creating what's going wrong. And so that's actually my first big sign. And we all have places where there are places where we easily do the inner work. And then there are places where we want to project outwards and we want to say, oh no, it's that thing. And that is the place where you will find the most freedom and the biggest breakthroughs are the places where you've externalized problems or scarcity.
So where you have the most emotions or triggers in the external world, are you saying then that's the place that you need to
You'll
go?
find the most power internally when you lean into that and you're like, oh, what in there is for me?
Is it just the question? Is that the question you have to ask yourself? Oh, what's in there for me? Or how do you turn it into an inner polarity or an inner game?
When I'm really pointing the finger at something externally, there is something deeper going on that I either don't have the capacity in that moment, or I feel uncomfortable turning inward and fully sitting with how I feel. When we externalize our feelings, it's a really good way of putting them out there so that I don't have to feel it in here. And so the first part of getting comfortable with coming back to our own power and our own process and our own inner adventure is to create a space where we're comfortable enough to say, I will love myself unconditionally no matter what I find in there. If you're holding negativity or judgment or abuse or criticism against yourself for what you find when you go inward, you're going to hold on to those. Your mind is going to create blind spots so that you can't see, because it's like, I don't want you to be mean to me. I don't want you to criticize me. So the first part of turning anything into an inward adventure is to like the person you're going in with. And that's your own voice.
Yes. That's sometimes the biggest challenge. So to bring it back to wealth, abundance, and the inner role of wealth and abundance, because we sometimes think about wealth as money and abundance as money. And when you're way too young to remember this, but when I grew up in the 60s, 70s, nobody was wealthy. Like everybody was sort of similarly, everybody had a car and a TV and a house, and everybody was happy. And then suddenly the world shifted, and I'm not sure exactly when, if it was in the 80s, and the definition of success and of wealth became how much money you have, how much things you got. And it's almost, here we are, the other side of 40 years, and it's almost like the more stuff we have, we are not happier. Mm. So, and a couple of years ago, I heard the definition about wealth is that wealth is what you've got when all the money is left. So how do we feel like if it's the inner world that determines how abundant or wealthy we are, how do we create, what I hear from you is that you need to create the inner abundance, the inner wealth, the inner world first. So I want you to talk to that, please.
Yeah. And how amazing that you could actually see that journey over the years and really see for yourself that we're not actually happier the more stuff that we have. Like you could see the difference in the trending. So abundance is a state of being. It's not something physical or tangible. It's the way that we perceive the world. And also that's the same with fear and scarcity and constriction and lack. So it's a state of consciousness. And for those who haven't explored our states of consciousness, you perceive the world not just through your mind. So a lot of us read books and we might, have ideas about money or abundance. And that's one way that affects or influences our state of consciousness is our beliefs, whether they're limiting or they're expansive. But our physiology, our body is giving us an experience of life. Our emotions give us an experience of life. And even our energetic field or our intuition is giving us an experience of life. So if I'm reading books about abundance and I have these expansive ideas about money, but every time I go to pay my bills, I get into a panic, like, oh my gosh, money's leaving. There's never enough. There's never enough. How am I going to? Well, I'm actually in a different state of consciousness. I'm not in a state of abundance. I'm in a state of fear and lack. And so when we look at changing our state, we're looking at our whole being, not just our thoughts and our ideas about what money is. I think of abundance as a state of having more than enough, or it's a state of being. So I'm more than enough instead of externally having more than enough. There's two ways to kind of look at that. I'll just use an example. One of the first states of scarcity that I really saw when I started exploring scarcity and abundance was time scarcity. And I can remember as a kid, there was never like 2 minutes just to sit down and relax and just rest in the moment. It was like, come on, go. We got to like get to the next thing. There's the next appointment. There's this thing. There's a business. There's a vacation. There, it was like everything was just, there was never enough time. And when I went in and healed that stress on my nervous system, and I think you've even had stuff around time scarcity. We both have, But it's like you feel that panic. Like it always feels like no matter how much you're doing or how well you're managing your calendar, there's never enough time to fit it all in.
Yes.
And then healing that and actually feeling in my whole body and all of my emotions so relaxed that this morning when I'm arriving to this podcast, it's like I have enough time to eat the healthy food that I need, and I have enough time to like physically and emotionally prepare, and everything somehow gets done. And when I see the world that way, I start creating more opportunities and more spaciousness to make room for everything that I want in my life that's really meaningful to me. And it's sort of like when you change the way that you see the world, you start then creating opportunities for more of that experience to come to you.
It's like the way you look at or what's that saying? The way you see the world looks different. Well, the way you change your view of the world change, or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to bring conversation around money and women in particular, and how our upbringing and like you would just say, your parents, or I don't know, I think assume that you were so busy as a family and that there was never enough time. I remember every fight my parents had about money, and that there was never enough, and we need to work harder and do harder. And again, 50 years later, you still have that ingrained in you. And what we come to believe is money is everything and money is really nothing. But how does our upbringing and the conversations around our parents' behaviors impact us throughout our lives? And I know you deal with that. A lot of clients that you see, I think, have a lot of that they need to release. So tell me about the experiences that you have with your clients and how that impacts their lives and what they do to feel more abundant.
I think abundance is such a personalized game because just like you said, you grew up and your parents were always never enough money. And so there could have been an ingrained or a deeply embedded fear around not having enough or not knowing how to make enough. For me with money, it was a little bit different. My parents were business owners. They did pretty well for themselves. So I always thought and was told money is easy to make. Like money's everywhere. You can make money doing anything. So I think that was something that my dad always locked in with us is like, you could make money doing anything, whether you're, the best bartenders in the world are throwing bottles with flames coming out of them, and there's these big, huge performances. And he's like, so if you want to be the best bartender in the world, you can make a lot of money doing that. Or if you want to be the best, like if you want to go and invest and you want to make passive income, and they got us like passive income books. And so I think there was just this beautiful instillment of like, there's money to be made in anything. So it really got me to consider, well, what's meaningful to me? Like if I could make money doing anything, how do I want to make money, and what would really help me to thrive? But scarcity around money came when I first started paying my own bills. And, we didn't, as much as money was like talked about and celebrated, there wasn't very tangible, like this is how you bookkeep for your business, or this is how you pay your bills. And I started my first company at 21 and I moved out, and it was just like, whoa, life comes at you really fast. And the first fear was like, am I going to be able to pay my bills? And that fear, I didn't realize this until probably 5 years ago, that the fear of not knowing if I would be able to pay my bills still was within me.
Wow.
15 years ago. And I realized, oh my gosh, there hasn't been a time where I haven't been able to pay my bills in so many years. But I still, every time I would see a bill come in, or I'd get a notification on my phone, it'd be this. And so I actually had to heal and reopen and remind my body, you've always had more than enough. And I would actually, so for a while, then I would sit and meditate. Every time I paid a bill, I would meditate and I would remind my body, you are so abundant. You actually feel how good it feels to pay this bill. Feel how good it feels to send money to this cause that you like. Feel how good it feels to have so much that there's always enough to pour out and you never have to fear losing it. So I think that for me, it was like, there's always money to be made, but there was a fear around spending and losing. Like, how do I?
And I think that's a collective fear currently as well with economic, I don't want to cast a spell on what's happening economically, but, stock markets is down and crypto markets is down and
people are constricting.
Right. So give people, listeners, some advice about how do they stay abundant when they have those fears. Are they going to have a job at the end of the month? Are they going to, how do you not go into scarcity or fear?
I think that this time is probably teaching people self-mastery, at least for me. I know in my world, a lot of people have been healing for a while and they've been doing the inner work for a while, and their capacity is really high. When we go into fear and scarcity, we go into our fear and scarcity patterns, So a friend of mine once told me during COVID, he's like, well, just because you're not going to Costco and buying 50 packs of bulk toilet paper, and worrying that we're going to run out of...
There were people that...
There were, right? But he's like, what are your fear patterns? Yeah. And mine's work. So I was like, oh my gosh, as soon as COVID hit, I was like, I'm going to start this new thing. I'm going to start this new business. And I was just in my office every day. And I realized, my fear pattern is when I don't know what the outcome is, I know I can just always work my way through anything. Oh. I was taught really hard work, and so that was like one thing I could control when I can't control external circumstances. And so I think it's, if you know what your fear patterns are and you know where you might override the natural flow of life or the trust or the rhythm of life or the rhythm of your own body, when we start getting into anxiety, that speeds us up. So we're missing our cadence. We're missing our biological rhythm to create from, and we won't be able to hear those inner impulses of true intuition. So when we're in fight or flight, we miss our intuitive messages and our intuition of when do I need to sell my stocks? When do I need to buy stocks? When, and so for people in this time, it's really sinking into how do I, first of all, make space for whatever fear exists so that I can work through it and not create from it. If you listen to your fear, it's telling you what's important to you.
Yeah.
When we try to avoid our fear and suppress it, it's still bubbling up under the surface. It's still driving our decisions. So stop running from your fear and just lead into it for a minute. Listen to the fear so that it can keep flowing, flow through you, flow out of you. You don't want to create from that fear. It feels like it's just not going to flow through. Just keep on coming back. I would recommend them get support.
Yeah.
If you feel like, because sometimes co-regulation is one of the best ways to retrain our bodies for peace, serenity, abundance, love. We entrain off of each other so much. So if there's somebody that you feel comfortable having hold space for you, to retrain yourself in those experiences, how to feel in relation to the fear or in relation, that's helpful.
I think what a lot of people do, your natural is to withdraw from friends or from groups and try and figure this thing out that you're going through by yourself. And instead of going the opposite way of leaning in, feeling the feeling, and find a community or find a group or find a person. I love the co-regulation, but also I think the co-regulation will regulate down, not be with a group that
is more fearful than you.
Right.
It can go both ways. Anxiety is like catching a cold. When we have collective anxiety and collective fear, it's like it's so easy to catch a cold, right? It's like when your immune system's down, it's easy to catch whatever's going around. Yeah, there are times where I feel so confident about regulating myself. And when I see that I'm going into fear, I can meditate, or I can hold myself, or take a hot bath, or go lay outside in nature. There's other times where I need a lifeline, and I'm like, I'm so dysregulated because this fear around something, or fear of losing this, like I need some support to transform this in my own body.
And if you look at money, it impacts everything, really. Every relationship, who we have friendships or relationships with, we're not going to have a relationship with ourselves. So I think this is really challenging times for us to be able to face the resistance we have in ourselves.
I would love to just close about this current time. I do think that we are in such a masculine, linear culture. We have been forever. And the linear is we can grow, grow, grow forever. It's always going to be growing. We're always going to be expanding. We always should be making more than we made the year before. And that's not life. The feminine understands cyclical nature. We have an in-breath and we have an out-breath. And our economy has always gone in ups and downs. The stock market is just like the in-breath and the out-breath. That life is growing and expanding. And that out-breath is actually allowing us to take a bigger in-breath when we're ready. But I think so many of us hold on so tightly that we're like, no, I don't want to exhale. I don't want to exhale. I'm just,
then pass out because she don't exhale.
And so I think in this current time, everyone's resisting the out-breath.
Okay.
And it's like sometimes we need to realize we're going to have to take an out-breath.
I feel like and it's a whole different conversation, the masculine, feminine, but even this go, go, go and grow, 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 it's not even working for the masculine anymore. It hasn't been working for the feminine energy for a while, but it's exhausting to constantly having to hold your breath in and having to just keep on going. And that brings me to, and it's sort of leaning into, we see all these successful people really financially, was our definition of a successful life is how much money we have and how much things we have, get to exiting a company for hundreds of millions or making millions, and they're desperately unhappy. And it's almost like the money or the wealth they were chasing was a compensation for something else. How do you know when that is? Or speak to me about, because that's also again the inner, as we say, it's your inner world. So if you're poor in your inner world, how can wealth show up?
It's kind of the same thing of like our external world is just a mirror for what's going on internally. And everything that we create, so I do work with a lot of incredible creators, business owners, very, even investors. And everything that we create is an extension of the energy that we create it from. So if you create a life from pain and scarcity and feeling like you're never enough, when you get to the end, it doesn't matter if it's $100 million, it's going to feel empty and pain, and that like it still was never enough, no matter how much you made and how much the bank account went up. And so the thing about abundance is like, you can allow life to feel good while you're creating and still have goals for where you're going. Living from a space of this feels so nourishing and it's more than enough doesn't keep us from getting to a destination. So I think a lot of people have this concept of like, I have to crack the whip, or I have to defer happiness or delayed gratification, but then they get to the end and they still feel the same that they always have. And it's sort of like, I think maybe some people, it takes that much energy and effort to realize how important their happiness actually is.
I think when you're in the grind of it's not enough and I do more and if I achieve next year's budget or if I do that, I always like your body is telling you I'm not happy or maybe you put on weight or you have anxiety, but we take medications for that or we don't listen. In your experience, when do people say, I want to create from somewhere different? Is it the brick in the face event type of thing?
I think everybody reaches it at their own timing. I think I've worked with some people that see the difference of genuinely fulfilled, thriving, happy friends, or, they come to work with me and all of a sudden it's like a light bulb and they don't need that over the head moment, where other people, it's like, yeah, internally they're just completely feeling, I would say it's a sense of just emptiness, and it really doesn't matter how much I do anymore because the numbers are always there. I could not work for the rest of my life and it doesn't matter because I don't even, what am I going to stop working for? Whether I work or don't work, it doesn't really change my experience that I'm having of life. There's no change.
I worked, and I think a couple of years ago, with the concept of the traumapreneur, how we create from our traumas. And I think when I spoke to a lot of people about the concept of be creating from our pain, and they were almost saying, like, too scared to let go of it, because where's my motivation going to come from? What if I'm not as ambitious as I am anymore? What if I change and everything changed, and then I don't want my business? I need to stay in my trauma and I need to stay creating because I'm in this thing now. I can't see life. I can't see creating from a different space. I guess what I'm hearing from you is at some point, when you're ready, the shift will happen. You will see people, the examples will just show up of people that's creating from love and abundance. And then you'll start to get curious about it.
Yeah. And people who have created from scarcity, that is their it's actually, I don't feel that it's true motivation, but that's the discipline or the force or the self-control. That is the only motivation that they know, or outrunning something that they want to avoid. But when you really tap into passion and inspiration, there's no crack the whip. You're just pulling. You're so drawn. You're being pulled. Every part of you is just curious and lit up and excited. And you approach things as like, I wonder if I could create this, or, oh, what could we do here? And it's far more expansive. So yeah, it does take some getting to know your inner inspiration and where does that well.
It's so foreign. If you don't know what that feels like to create, to find safety into creating from, and I know we've had this because you just like, okay, I'm gonna what I want to bring forth, and you write it down, and boom, it happens.
Yes, I think that's what happens when we're so clear energetically, and we've done the inner work. Is even our thoughts manifest instantly into reality, and it's so fascinating. So I think about abundance isn't just financial; it's knowing what we desire.
Yes.
And when a lot of business owners, especially, they weren't taught to play with their desires. They weren't taught to even question what I want, because I'm so driven towards this outcome or this ideal.
Being so serious, making money and making success, and become as like, right, it's not, there's no curiosity. It's like the beliefs again that was, and God bless our parents, they've tried to do their best, but like, you got to grind, you got to work hard, you got to hustle.
And that, so, someone explained it so well. It was like going to a restaurant and the waiter comes to the table and you're like, well, I don't know what I want. And he's like, okay, I'll come back. That's how the universe is treating you. When you don't know what you want, it can't bring you anything. It can't bring you things. Our desire is what puts a charge. It puts a frequency into the universe. And that desire is what creates the order. But if you're in a state of fear and scarcity, and I've done this before, thinking I can outwill my internal state, and I'm like, I really want this, but internally I'm freaking out and I'm so fearful, and I'm like, I don't think I'm really going to get what I want. Well, that's actually the frequency that you're putting out. So you're going to get the fear. So it's really important, like I said, self-mastery is to know when you're in a state of fear and lack so that you can shift it, because the universe responds to your frequency. And it will deliver whatever frequency you're emitting. So the other day, I think about this relationship with, we can have abundance in money, we can have abundance in all these things, but if you really don't know what you want, all the money in the world still isn't going to get you there. The other day, I was thinking, wow, I have had so much fun working with really wealthy business owners who are looking for their passion and their purpose, and they're wanting more fulfillment in life. And when I look back at so many of the favorite clients that I've had throughout the years, I get referrals all the time. So I don't work with the same, type of person every time. But I was just thinking the other day how much fun I've had with those entrepreneurs and how lit up we are, and our sessions just feel like they're just overflowing. And the way that I think about an abundant relationship is when I'm giving and I feel like I am so happy for what I'm giving and what I'm sharing and what I'm sharing in this dynamic. And the other person, and whatever it is, if it's a client exchange, what they're paying me feels like it's more than enough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so grateful. I feel like what I'm being compensated for this is more than enough. And the client on the other side is like, oh my gosh, I am receiving so much out of this work. I feel like what I'm paying for this, I'm getting so much more than what I'm paying for. That's like an abundant relationship. And we can tell the kind of people, whether it's romantic or clients or friends, the people where we're like, no matter how much I'm giving, it doesn't really feel like I'm getting enough back, or I'm not really getting in return what feels satiating.
It's important to get something, because we've been the giving nature of women, you shouldn't expect anything back. You should just give.
Yeah.
And so can we give with the expectation to receive something?
My perspective is without attachment. So It's when we give and it feels just genuine to give without attachment, that's abundance, when we can give freely. And we know, to me, when you know yourself, you know when it feels so good to give and it feels true to your being and it feels like I could just keep giving. This is like flowing, my cup's overflowing. And then there's times where it doesn't feel authentic to continue outpouring. And so it's knowing ourselves and being in alignment with that. And also being open to receiving. So often we're taught to oh, no, it's okay. Or, people might offer to support us, or they'll offer us opportunities. So I had a client, I was sitting and meditating the other day, and I was barely even consciously choosing it. This is what I feel is when we're energetically clear, things just happen. So I was sitting with myself and thinking about how all the entrepreneurs, business owners that I've worked with that I just had a ball with, we just had such a blast and everything was so transformative. The relationships felt so abundant, so fun, so beautiful. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, I would just love to call in more clients like that this year. That's been so much fun for me. And then the second thought that I had was, I just don't know how I'm going to have time for any of that, because I'm already maxed. I don't know how I'm going to go to a networking event or do all the, I really don't know how that's going to be possible, but that's what I'd really like to call in. And then the other day, one of my clients who I worked with last year calls me and he's like, I want to know who you want to work with. I want you to tell me exactly who you have the most fun working with, because I have a Rolodex full of people who would love to work with you. And I just need to know who you want to work with, and I can fill your calendar with anyone that you want. And it was uncomfortable for me to receive that. I was like, oh my gosh, the universe is delivering this opportunity that I just asked for. I literally sent out the frequency, and now I'm like, can I really receive that?
I just want to interrupt and tell everyone, this is what happens in Kristi's life. She puts the thought, I don't even put words out, or do you just think about it?
Sometimes it's just in my head.
And then it just happens.
Every time.
Every time. It's like, dang, girl. Touch me and rub on me. I want some of that.
I feel like it's getting to know yourself, right? It's like getting to know, what would you really want? And sometimes our ego, and this is where we have to deprogram the cultural conditioning.
Yeah.
Because so often we're chasing what someone else thinks we should want, and we don't actually have the charge or that internal desire. And it's that internal desire that draws the universe to us. We are the universe, but we're co-creating with life. And if we don't have that deep internal desire, that's when we have to chase, because we're not sending the real frequency of desire out.
What you just said there was, we think we need to do things because it's my generation has always been told what to do, what to be, how to be. And you get to this point of life and you don't want to be told what, you just know there's something misaligning. You don't want to be told what to do, but you also, it's actually a beautiful journey when your second stage starts, because then you really get to go into that inner adventure that you can, like, what do I want? Who am I? And your generation is just so much earlier that it happened. So it's just so amazing. And I want to, every woman that gets to late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it's never too late to find yourself, to find the things that you want to let go of, and just, who am I, right? And how am I going to live life to the fullest? I just want to sort of start wrapping the conversation to women who got to that stage where either you've been married for 20, 25 years, and then there's sadly a divorce. You're faced with, I need to make all these decisions by myself, and I've never done it, or I rarely did it by myself. Or luckily, if you stayed married, but the partner passed, and it's all of this change of life. What advice do you have for women that's recreating or creating their second stage, whatever phase their second stage is in? How do we think about it? How do we do that inner getting to know myself? Because I've lost myself 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Do they need to come and see you, work with a person? Because I know it's also not necessarily therapy where we talk about the same stuff over and over. I mean, that didn't really work for me, but because the stuff is so deep, hidden, ourselves, we hide ourselves so well, and we hide it in parts of our bodies. How do you start, or if different phases of your journey, like,
well, I think you did it so well. And I think both of us actually had a chapter where we had to surrender to life and be like, okay, something has to change. And I think it's in that surrendering and realizing that, which so many women do, is we pour ourselves into a partner. We pour ourselves into children. I don't have children of my own, but I had stepchildren for a while, and we pour ourselves into a career. We pour our energy into all of these things. And a lot of times it's a very masculine way of doing things, is to do, give. And that doesn't replenish the feminine energy system. It doesn't replenish the feminine body. And so there was a point where I was like, I need to refocus and take some time and go inward and really figure out like what is meaningful, because that do didn't feel as nourishing to me as I knew that it could. And I knew I needed to recenter. And so I think it's just in that acknowledgement. I think the more honesty we can have with ourselves, and you can have a midlife crisis at any time in your life, just to make sure that you're on track, and just throw your hands up and go, I surrender. And am I really on track? Like, is this really fulfilling me? And anything that's not working, the more honest we are with ourselves, the more access we have to change. I think it's hard when we're like, oh, no, I'm fine. Oh, no, I'm good. Or, oh, I feel guilty for doing this. Or, we hold on to being okay. And we hold on to, I've got it. I can take care of it all. And that there's nothing that will bypass your desires more than holding on to something that's not serving you.
Right. That's a lot, dude. It's a lot of work. I just want to sort of, as we're nearing the end, tell people what you do and what magic you're bringing to the world.
So I love when people know, I know I could find more fulfillment. I know there's something inside of me. I know I'm not tapping into as much passion or as much life as I could be. And to me, there's nothing more incredible than the mystery of our soul. Our soul, which we haven't really talked about, but our soul is this, think about the deepest love, the deepest friendship, the deepest knowing, the deepest way of being seen that you could possibly be seen or be known. And that is the wisdom of your soul. And when I work with people, yes, we're going to go into breaking patterns. Yeah, we're going to transform the scarcity that's encoded in our cells and our nervous system. I do a little bit more shamanic work with people. I would say it's really going into the soul or the unconscious and getting to witness ourselves and know the mystery that you can't read about in a book. You cannot learn. We can talk about abundance all day, but until you go into your inner world and you meet the part of yourself that knows your abundance, the part of you that knows your desire, the part of you that knows your passion, that is like tapping in to a source of energy that you can't tap into externally. And so that's what I take people to do in different forms, different tools, different modalities, but it's really accessing our full life force and getting people to see themselves like so powerfully, so potently.
We'll put your details in the footnotes for people to contact you. And she's really amazing at what she's doing at her job. As we end the conversation, I have a question from a previous guest for you. It's a beautiful question, really. And it's so apt. He didn't know it was going to be for you, but his question is, if you've achieved everything in life, all of your dreams, you have everything, and God whispers in your ear, let's go, where will that take you?
Thank you. What's the man's name who asked this?
Stephen Young.
Stephen Young. Oh my gosh, I know Steve. Okay. In my heart, I believe that people go to their heaven. Their perception of the afterlife is where their next evolution is taking them. I think for me, I'm actually not sure. I'm still exploring that. I think I've been beyond this experience many times. It's very formless and very energetic. And I think my mind is very open to what could be. And I've heard so many different philosophies that I have a deep trust that it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be even better. It's going to be an expansion. And I think I am still so curious. I think it's something that I learn more and more about all the time.
Yeah. And let's go.
Let's go.
We all have that calling of let's go. So same to our listeners and viewers. If you get the whisper in your ear, let's go. Answer that question for yourself as well. And Kristi Worful, she's Instagram at Kristi Worful, at Songa. And thank you.
Yeah,
so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And thank you.
I do want to sit in meditation with the question from Steve. And I'm going to really sit and open to that fully. So thank you for asking.
Yeah. And for us in our second stage, life is just beginning. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends and like us on social media and join the Her Second Stage community. Thank you. Till next time.